that's just a perfect example of all this knee-jerk bullshit, like creating new problems,
Hmm.
while solving none of the ones it's set to solve in the first place.
We have these massive systems in place full of
Yeah.
all kinds of presumed experts that are really good at finding these things and weeding them out and using all this high-tech gadgetry that they have. I mean, if they're not able to catch these people before they do anything, well, then what's the point of those systems too? Maybe the NSA is kind of bullshit and the FBI, like,
Obviously you're looking for that now,
yep,
right?
yeah,
But
we're wise
you
to
can
that one.
still look for it and be like, watchful and aware without having the TSA.
All right. Okay, everybody, welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and yeah, don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and all that jazz. That'd be great.
Yeah. Instead, we've been hemorrhaging subscribers, so tell your friends to subscribe too. And I'm Casey Rochford, or, well, it's not really my name, but still technically legally. But anyway, that's who I will be for this episode. And we also write our own music, so hang out to the end and you will hear a song that one of us or both of us has concocted in the last 20 plus years. somewhere in that range. So what goodness shall we discuss today?
Well, this is a subject that I have some pretty strong feelings about. And since you've been traveling quite a lot, I think you might have a few thoughts on it as well. Why don't we talk about the TSA?
Yeah, like, literally, that's what I think of that. Like, I get so irritated every time I go through that line, and like, they're federal employees or some crap, so you can't even like be mean to them or hurt their feelings, and that's like a federal offense. Which, I mean, we've gone on and on about how stupid that is. Like, almost every federal, like, trying to think of the English word,
Agency or
no,
organization?
like, crime,
Oh,
uh, felony.
yeah,
every,
felons.
every federal felony is basically like a crime against the government, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So my most recent experiences, like going to Vegas and back, I learned something about your boarding pass that you get. If
Mm-hmm.
there's 4 S's on it, SSSS,
Mm-hmm.
that's the secret code to pull you aside for a random in-depth check, let's say, like right before you get on the plane. And so, like, we decided, because we were going to get married like the day after we flew, we wanted to like be rested and comfortable, so we sprung for the business class. And so we're hanging out in the lounge until like right up until boarding was about to close, and we walk up there, and they pull my wife aside, and I'm like, what's going on? They're like, you can get on the plane. I was like, no, I'm not getting on the plane without her.
What the hell?
We're about to get married over there. Like, I'm not. Yeah. And so then they come back, and they like they showed her, like, they had her passport and boarding pass, and they said she isn't who she says she is. And I opened it up, and she's somebody like mixed up our boarding passes and stuffed mine into her passport. So it looked like she had a boarding pass for a completely different person. And I
Oh,
said, no, no,
geez.
no, that's me. They just got mixed up. And then they're like, oh, well, then you need to come with us. And they
What?
like took me back because I was the one selected
Oh,
for
God.
the and this happens to me a lot. I don't know if it's the bald head or what, but there is a definite profiling going on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really like they have this sense of like needing to do something because they're completely useless.
Oh, it's been proven that they're useless.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think we should like, I mean, I think about this a lot, but I think we should start a petition or something to abolish the TSA.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically created in the wake of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of people have studied over and over and over again. They've been tested and they fail. And a lot of times when somebody does get caught, it's not due to the TSA catching somebody. It's because maybe an alert crew member or another passenger or something has spotted something. But yeah, the people have tested the TSA and like they're allowed, they've been able to bring in guns and all kinds of shit. And like potential bombs, not real ones, but like it looks like one, so they should see that. But yeah, stuff like that just slips through. But then they're like, the thing that's annoying about them is they like have this big headed sense of authority. Like they're power tripping all the time. You know, like, oh, we're the TSA and they're bigger than everybody and stuff. And they you know, they're really not. They call themselves officers, but they're not. They're not cops. They're not anything. They're basically just employees that screen passengers. That's it. You know, they have no
Yeah.
authority, but they act like it. And I think that position attracts a lot of people, just like the police, you know, well, and politicians. It doesn't attract good people. It attracts people that have issues, and they live out, you know, try to compensate for their shortcomings through this particular career. And
I don't even think it's particularly paid well as far as like
mm-mm.
federal jobs go.
No, it's
So,
not.
and not that it should be, but
Yeah.
you know, it's like why do people even want that job? Like nobody's happy about having to take their shoes off and their belt and all this stuff and
Or
this hurry and
be groped. That's another thing that,
yeah.
like, I mean, they're groping old ladies and little kids and stuff like that. And I mean, that kind of thing is a little creepy. And
Mhm.
I mean, there's better ways of dealing with things. Like a lot of other countries, they have something akin to like air marshals, essentially. So random passenger who's armed, who's like essentially a cop for air travel or any kind of travel for that matter. They are just kind of mixed in randomly. You never know how, you know, if or how many there'll be. And
Yeah.
they just they don't really worry about security that much, and that's really a better way to do it. Like, you don't have to have this long line of people having all their shit checked. You just need a couple of people randomly uh,
Right.
on the plane that are able to deal with those situations. Because I mean, they don't have that now, and shit happens on planes. And what then? Nobody's
Yeah.
armed. Nobody
What's
has a
this
way to
random
stop them.
check supposed to do? Because they do this random check right before you get on the plane,
Yeah.
after you've already had everything checked, and you
Mm-hmm.
have no actual way of then arming yourself with something that somehow slipped past their security already, right?
Yeah.
So like what's the what's the fucking point? Even if you could get a weapon on yourself, how is a random check going, you know, like I don't know, let's say like 100,000 people fly in a day and they check like 10.
Mm-hmm. They're
What are
they're
the
just
odds that you're going to actually get the terrorists, you know, like
well, they're just flexing basically. That's really all it is. It's just a show. I mean, the entire thing is a show.
yeah.
It doesn't provide any actual security. It's just security theater, as they call it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. It's useless. There's far better ways of dealing with those kinds of things. Like I said, I mean, uh, the,
We
I
get
don't know.
fear and fiction from morons.
Yeah. 9/11 Trek. That's the best one. Oh my God. That's so good. But yeah, I think you're right. Maybe there needs to be some kind of petition to try to get rid of the TSA. I mean, before 9/11, yeah, there were random things that happen, like hijackers and stuff. But I mean, it was stuff things like that still happen today,
Yeah.
even with the existence of the TSA. And it's kind of pointless.
Well, let's look at the COVID situation, roughly 3 years of dealing with that. And the government has basically said, that we're done. We're not tracking it anymore, blah, blah, blah. It's still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still deadly to a certain population.
Yeah.
Uh, More so than terrorism is any kind of threat.
For
Yet,
sure.
yet,
Yeah.
on to Homeland Security, the TSA, the Patriot Act, like all this bullshit is
Mm-hmm.
still in place. And we can't take care of, or we can't take that away because that's our security. And if we take that away, then all of a sudden we'll all be killed.
Yeah, there's going to be just a wave of terrorists coming in.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I
This
mean,
is
we're
like
out.
fear mongering you get from the Second Amendment. Like, we got to have this or we'll all die,
Well, it's like, well, like a lot of things, honestly, it's their phantom uh, problems, essentially. I mean, well, it's not that. I mean, sure, there is a potential risk of some kind of terrorist happening, some terrorist coming in or terrorist act happening, and there always will be. And but yeah, it's like you said with the COVID thing, like they're kind of a couple of years on, and it's like, no big deal now. Well, we're out of Afghanistan, we're out of Iraq. Like, I thought mission accomplished, right? So why do we need the TSA still? It's kind of dumb. And really, it's all they're doing is just bullying the average person. They're not catching anything. I mean, if they were intent on catching terrorists and stuff, well, they maybe start before they even come into the U.S. Use all this big super duper supercomputer NSA shit that they have, and actually find these people and identify them and track them before they hop on a plane to do something. And honestly, it's like, here's the stupid thing about it. It's like, well, okay, that was unexpected when that happened. People hijacking planes was nothing new, but what was new was people hijacking planes and then flying them into buildings. That was kind of new. No one saw that one coming.
right.
Well, now that it's already been done, I don't think anybody's going to try it again. And plus,
No,
new
that would be
security measures are in place. Like, you can't get into the cockpit anymore. I mean, you can, but it's very difficult. So whereas before it wasn't quite so difficult. So that already, we don't have to worry about that anymore.
yeah. There's like a code or something that only the pilots have.
It can only be opened from the inside, I think. And in
Yeah.
fact, if I remember correctly, they have an emergency firearm in the cockpit too.
And
So
that actually backfired. I guess there was some co-pilot and he was suicidal, and when the pilot went to the head to take a piss, he locked it from the inside and then crashed the plane. Like, what an asshole move, right? Like, if you want to kill yourself, jump out of the plane,
or be like Sky King and just personally individually hijack an aircraft, like steal an aircraft and then crash it.
yeah.
Like that's fine. That's I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks that stuff got destroyed, but I mean, it's like he didn't kill anybody else.
Yeah, so that's just a perfect example of all this knee-jerk bullshit, like creating new problems,
Mm-hmm.
while solving none of the ones it's set to solve in the first place.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, like I said, we have these massive systems in place full of
Yeah.
all kinds of presumed experts that are really good at finding these things and weeding them out and using all this high tech gadgetry that they have. I mean, if they're not able to catch these people before they do anything, well, then what's the point of those systems too? Maybe the NSA is kind of bullshit and the FBI, like, I mean, what are you doing if you're not able to figure these things out? Yeah. Like, I mean, and again, it's another thing that's like had an intent and it's like mission creep. Now the scope has gotten much wider, and now they're doing things that have nothing to do with terrorism. They're just spying on the average person. And like, yeah, that's kind of bullshit too.
Yeah. to your point, like hijacking a plane to fly it into a building, yeah, like nobody's going to try that twice because obviously you're looking for that now,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
But
We're wise
you
to
can
that one.
still look for it and be like, watchful and aware without having the TSA.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something so impactful, especially now that we've lived with the TSA for 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
It's something so impactful that even the average flyer, from business persons to the occasional leisure, vacationer, we're all like kind of aware of suspicious behavior because we have it burned into our memories
Yeah.
what could happen,
And in fact,
and
that's a really good point. That really the passengers and the crew are really the first line of defense. People should be kind of paying attention. If you see something weird that it's a little off, let somebody know. And there should be a system in place to deal with that. Like that's where they pull someone aside and interview and interrogate them and stuff. Is when several passengers alert somebody like, "Hey, this guy's kind of suspicious," or
yeah,
something. Like you don't
yeah.
need the TSA to do that, honestly.
I
Because like I
was
said,
I was at an airport one time and I saw a suspicious package,
hmm,
and then I looked about 30 meters away. There was a TSA agent like tucked away on a little smoke break, and I was
hmm,
like, "Hey, there's an unattended bag here," and she was like, "Oh, that's mine. It's okay."
uh,
Like, wait,
yeah. So
you
you're
can't
you're,
do
you're like,
that.
yeah,
You'd be like,
yeah,
if you leave this unattended, there will be like bomb squads, and
yeah.
you'll be questioned and interrogated. And you go have a smoke break and leave your bag unattended at an airport because you're the TSA and you're
Do as I say, not as I do,
right.
basically, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Well, yeah, like I mean, I'm so against the TSA that I do not fly. Like I won't. I refuse to. Like the only time I would fly would be like a charter flight or something where there is no security involved, no TSA. Like my dad, after my mom passed away, my dad got remarried and he wanted to do a Vegas wedding. So, he planned that and stuff. And he's like, "Hey, can you come down and participate, be a part of it and stuff?" And I said, "Well, I mean, I don't know if I could take the time off." And he said, "Oh, it'll only be, a day or something." And I'm like, "No, it'll be like 3 days because I'm driving." And he said, "Oh, well, I'll pay for your plane ticket." And I said, "I don't fly." And he kept like begging basically. And I said, he's like, "Can you just make an exception?" And I'm like, "Well, then I throw away my principles. I'm not going to make an exception." Like I'm that's a firm stance that I have, and I think everybody should do that. And honestly, we
Yeah.
don't need a petition. We just need enough people to be vocal like that and just refuse. Like, okay,
Nah, nah, that won't make a difference. Like that's a hill you're dying on for nothing, I think, because like it's a government agency. They don't care if people boycott it.
well,
Like
the
they're not
airlines
about
will.
it's not about turning profits and yeah, but the airlines have no sway on that either.
Oh, yes, they do. Eventually, they will if they're starting to lose revenue and stuff. And I mean, it doesn't take that many people. It would be like if they lost 10% of their revenue, that's a huge hit. And I mean, I know for a lot of people, it's very it would be very inconvenient. Like you fly for work or whatever. Well, that you kind of can't get around that. But I mean, honestly, it's like it for me. It's kind of twofold. Like I'm just personally because I believe in being the change you want to see in the world. Lead by example, essentially. And also, I just don't want to like if I can avoid those things, I do. I'm so against the existence of the TSA that it's like, okay, I'm not gonna fly at all. Like, I don't want those guys touching me. I don't want their stupid backscatter X-ray, scanning me. I don't want them like looking at my shit and rifling through it. No, not gonna, not gonna do it. I like, there's just, it's not worth it to me. I don't have anywhere to go anyway, so whatever. Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they're utterly useless, but like I don't know, you're missing out on a lot by not being able to explore the world. Like, what if we had a world tour And
Well, I do have a sailboat, and that is
yeah,
actually
that
that's
you
my
can't
plan.
you can't sail from one place to the other in like a day,
No.
and it wouldn't be practical otherwise.
Well, if that's the case, then it would be a charter flight. That's the way to do that. Like it's a little more expensive, but hey, you got your own personal pilot, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a little faster too, in theory. Like you don't have to wait in lines and stuff like that and deal with all that and baggage checks and shit. Like, well, you won't lose your baggage because your baggage probably is the only baggage there.
Randy, if he were on right now, he'd be able to answer some questions about that because he is actually a pilot.
Mm-hmm. So is my cousin.
Yeah, like a charter pilot, and
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah. I wonder. I feel like there probably is some kind of security involved because,
It
like,
depends on where you are, but
yeah,
typically, like if I were to go to the Gig Harbor airport and somebody with a plane took off, there's no like security at all there. It's basically it'd be no different than if you owned your own aircraft and took off. That you're not
but
going through security.
you still have to like, register the flight and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, that's true.
So, there is probably some, at least background check conducted.
I don't know about that necessarily. Um, maybe not. I suppose it depends. Maybe if you're doing an international flight, there could be something.
I mean, I doubt they let you fly anonymously. So,
Oh no, of course not. I mean, everything is tracked when it comes to the FAA.
yeah.
But it would still avoid the whole TSA thing.
Now, what about the FAA though?
Oh
Do you
God.
do you have a problem with that, or because I
Um,
mean, like we do kind of have like the safest when it comes to like, um, let's say structural integrity and things like that. Like there's a whole lot of like really tight standards when it comes to aerospace.
well, sure. Well, and also the FAA is involved in dealing with negotiating like flight paths and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you do need some, it doesn't have to be government, but you do need some form of structure and regulation and organization. And something like the FAA makes a lot of sense. You got to have a standard, right? So everybody kind of agrees, like this is how we do it. Same thing with radio with the FCC. Before the FCC existed, there were organizations that kind of manage the frequencies and things like that, and it makes sense. Like there's only so many frequencies there, and you can't have people like crisscrossing over each other and stuff. There
I mean,
has to be a way.
that's the whole reason time zones were invented because trains weren't able to coordinate and they would
Yep.
like crash and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. And that's why all that, like the DST is managed by the Department of Transportation. It's because trains. That's a kind of a strange thing, but
Huh.
and it made sense back then. I don't know that it necessarily makes sense now. I mean, we have computers that can easily figure that stuff out. But back in the
GPS and all
day,
that.
trying to coordinate, through telegraph or something like that. What time is it here? And yeah, you do. There has to be some kind of structure, of course, and a lot of times structures like that naturally emerge just because of people, like the consumer or the users, sort of figure things out, and they're like, it just happens. Like, why is USB the standard port for like almost everything except Apple? Um, it's just because that became the thing. Everybody used it, and it would be stupid to have something that isn't USB. Like, oh, you need a proprietary port to buy this camera and make the camera work. Oh, and now you have a computer that doesn't have that port. So it just
Yeah.
makes sense. People, yeah. Um, but as far as security goes, I think security can be managed by the airlines themselves. Like it used to be back in
Used
the
to be,
day.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like you had your standard. Typically, it was just a metal detector, and then if you beeped, then they'd be like, "Hey, wait a minute, what do you got there?" You know. Not that like
It's
guns are the only thing that you could bring. I mean, shit, you can there's polymer knives that would totally slip right through that. Like
Yeah, I mean, like
big boot knives made of like glass filled, reinforced plastic that can
if
like
that
punch
level
through
of
plywood.
if that level of security is good enough for like a concert hall
Mm-hmm.
or any other place where you're kind of confined and trapped and intermingling with hundreds or thousands of people,
Yeah,
uh why isn't it okay for planes,
that's a good point. And why only planes too?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's
it's
all kinds of
I don't think it's quite so bad for, well, it's definitely not as bad when you drive across the border.
yeah.
uh,
Well, buses, like if you could hijack a bus and kill a lot of people that way too.
Trains, oh my
Trains, I
gosh.
mean, you wouldn't necessarily, I guess you could cause a derailment on a train,
Yeah, it's harder
potentially.
to do a like targeted attack,
Yes, yeah.
but
But certainly you could, I think trains have some kind of regulation built in, like electronic speed regulation, so you can't go too fast. But if one doesn't have that, well, yeah, you could absolutely just full throttle around a corner and whoosh, kill a whole bunch of people.
I do have to say there have been an alarming rate of
Oh,
train accidents,
yeah.
right? Like almost every day for a while there.
Yeah, that is weird. Like what's the deal there?
Yeah, that was like super creepy to me. Like every day it was like, oh, a train went off the tracks in Ohio or whatever, and like it just kept happening. Like
Yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of like, mm,
What was the
uh,
cause of that? Like, I mean, they're all probably on their own, there's individual causes for each one, but it does seem kind of bizarre that there's a cluster of all these happening all at once.
yeah.
Is there some change that occurred somewhere that I don't know?
Uh,
I don't get it. It's not like there's some kind of software update that affected things, but maybe.
yeah, yeah. Like when you said that there was, some kind of speed regulation software or something, that reminded me to that because I don't know if it works that well.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember one not too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, down in like Tumwater, Olympia, or
Oh,
something.
it was near Olympia, or it was Nisqually.
Yeah, in Nisqually, and it was just too fast for the
Yeah,
curve. Like it wasn't really like they were doing anything wrong per se. It's just physics,
yeah,
and there was no software compensation for that, and a bunch of people died.
yeah. Well, and the I-5 was completely blocked
Mhm.
for like most of the day,
Yeah,
which is insane. Yeah, I mean, and that was, I think people at that point started kind of taking note of that there is a system that exists that can essentially auto regulate the speed of a train. So if there's a known area where, oh, you should go faster than this speed, it like forces the train to go slower. But apparently, this system wasn't in place in that area, or maybe within that train or something. I don't know. It was something that it's like it wouldn't have been that difficult to implement, but they just didn't.
maybe this is the beginning of AI taking over and
Yeah, why not?
liberating us.
Sure. I would welcome that, honestly. Although I don't know, Chat GPT is a little rough around the edges right now and might yield some. Although you probably wouldn't use Chat GPT for that, but an AI similar to that. That's more of
we
like a
should
language model.
we should do like a little comic where we're like crime fighters, like the kitchen sink microscopy, like crime fighters or whatever. But like our little plucky sidekick is Chat GPT,
In
and he
like
like,
a little cart
yeah, just like Holly.
like Holly, exactly. Oh man, that'd be funny. Actually, it would be kind of interesting to feed some information into Chat GPT and then have it come up with our lightning round topics. Like seriously, that would be an interesting one. Like we do, a lightning round completely AI chosen by an AI.
That is a good idea. I wonder how we pull that off.
Well, we'd basically have to explain what the show is and kind of add a little, give some details and stuff, and then have
I
it.
wonder if we could do it in real time. Like, okay,
Oh,
give us a politics topic.
yeah.
Like,
Well, we could. Yeah, you're right. We could. Yeah, instead of having it give a whole list, because you can have it'll remember the past of the conversation, so we could like build up the conversation so that it's aware kind of gets the gist of the show, and then yeah, we could almost do a live lightning round that way. We'd probably get some weird stuff, kind of like when we did the double live one. Yeah,
That was a pretty good one.
it was.
Except for the weird audio problems.
Oh yeah, that was, I don't know, it was bad internet or something.
Why are you speaking so quickly, sir?
Oh man, yeah. Like, I guess going back to the TSA though, I like the idea though of creating a petition. I mean, it probably, the government doesn't really listen to the citizens at all, but it might make, you know, you never know. There might be some traction gained if enough people express their displeasure with this system.
Does the TSA have a public union?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm
Because
not really aware of that.
I think it would be great if they just went on strike and we had like one day with no TSA to point at and say, look, nothing bad happened.
Yeah, actually, that's a good one day with no TSA.
Yeah,
that's the
hashtag one day no TSA.
Yeah. Or hashtag TSA go away.
Yeah. I mean, people would be like, "Wow, you can't look at like one data point and say it's all okay." But I mean, they're happy to print 4 S's on a few boarding passes here and there and assume that that's going to catch a bad guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I think even a day would be significant enough because of how many flights occur.
Yeah.
There's like thousands of flights in the US every day. So
strikes tend to happen on like very impactful times. So I bet if they went on strike on like Thanksgiving or something,
yeah,
right? Like everybody's trying to fly, get to family or whatever,
and
then boom, all of a sudden they're able to like get to their plane on time, and they don't have to take their shoes off and all this stupid crap, and everything works just it all works better than it has been for the last 20 years,
and nothing happened. Well, and that's the thing. It's like it is a fairly recent thing, but it's been long enough that a lot of people never existed in a time without the TSA.
Yeah. There are
but
adults now that never knew a time without the TSA.
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
That's sad.
Yeah. But it they've built up this sort of sense of fear, that oh, if we're not here, everybody's going to be unsafe. Like, oh, it's so dangerous. It's a dangerous world, and if the TSA isn't here to protect you, you're all going to die. I mean, it's the same bullshit that they did like in Washington state when marijuana was legalized. Like, all these ads saying like, oh my god, if this happens, it's going to be, I don't know, like brimstone and hellfire and stuff like that, and there's going to be people smoking pot in middle schools, and it's just people high everywhere driving and crashing into each other, and you look out there and it's like, nah, it's kind of the way it was before. Like, really nothing's changed, except people aren't getting arrested for bullshit like that. Mm-hmm. They're just getting arrested for other bullshit. Like, okay, we knocked one down, okay, let's keep on going.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too, because I mean there is more let's say flagrant use of marijuana, even behind the wheel. Like I see people smoking joints while they're driving and stuff. This is like really dumb.
Yeah.
And there probably are more accidents related to it, but there's such a hype around drunk driving, and you never hear anything about driving high. Hardly ever. Like there's the occasional sign on the road or a commercial here and there, but it's nothing like the drunk driving campaign.
Yeah.
It's just as, if not more dangerous, because I mean, like in my personal experiences with both forms of intoxication, I would sooner risk driving after a few beers than I would after using marijuana.
Oh yeah.
It's way too distracting, like you get dumb, like, like there's mild hallucinatory effects and
Yep.
just things out of left field that will not ever happen with alcohol.
True. Well, they're both kind of, obviously increases risk.
Right.
But
Neither
then
is
again,
optimal. Right. But
yeah,
gun to your head, like drink some beer and drive, or smoke a joint and drive. I'll drink the beer.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. But I
Especially
mean,
since I drink beer all the time, and it really won't affect me.
yeah, I mean but that's the same sort of fear mongering essentially that built up this kind of hype over terrorists and
Yeah.
all these threats and everything and like, oh, the only way is to have the TSA here to protect us, and and people, because they're ignorant of the facts and they're also going off of emotion, because all these arguments of course are emotive arguments, they're not logical. um they're willing to put up with it. Like they're like, oh well, it's a necessary evil. No, it is not necessary, and yes, it is evil. I mean, in a sense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but early on in the TSA, wasn't there controversy about them like profiling,
Yeah.
like targeting Muslims and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that? And I mean, is that a good or bad thing though?
Well, some countries do that.
Yeah.
And they do it because it's kind of like, well, we've identified, I mean, and maybe in the US, it's probably a little different than some other countries. Like, for instance, countries that are more homogenous, right? Like Japan or something. It's not as diverse as the US. So one random Muslim kind of sticks out, versus the average Japanese person. There's just, so
Here in the
maybe the,
melting pot, we've got a lot of different people
sure.
that will fly domestically too.
Mm-hmm.
And when you profile based on, okay, so 9/11 was pulled off by people who happen to be in the Muslim camp.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just because of their religion. There was a lot of factors, right? But
Sure.
when we profiled and looked harder at Muslim people and they complained about it, well, then I think that's what moved us to this like random
Mm-hmm.
sort of check situation. And I don't think I'm this is just my theory, but I don't think it's actually random. I think they've adjusted the algorithm so they don't look at Muslim people like as much. I'm sure they still sprinkle a few in here and there so it looks random, but
Yeah.
I think it's probably a tailored algorithm to leave them alone. And it's like, well, if the point was to catch Al Qaeda, which is pretty much a Muslim thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've just basically thrown away the one piece of your security measure that actually might have done something, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just wasting everybody's time and money.
Yeah, true. Well, and the thing is, like, there's millions and millions and millions of Muslim people that travel all the time, all around the world, and only a handful could be, in that Al Qaeda or whatever the flavor of the week is camp. Um, and so I guess it's kind of stupid to profile because, like, again, the percentage is so small. Like, we have this massive behemoth data mining and processing system that is the NSA, that presumably is supposed to be looking for stuff like that. Um, maybe use that, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, then
Well,
then you can pick on the person who actually fits the profile, not necessarily, because Muslim is a really broad profile.
oh yeah.
Um, maybe look at the country of origin, that kind of thing, because there are very specific places where maybe it's much more likely that somebody would be a terrorist.
Well, and there have been homegrown, quote unquote terrorists,
Mm-hmm.
even in the Muslim camp, even white skin folk, let's say.
Oh yeah, yeah. Muslim isn't like a
Yeah,
race or a nationality. It's just a
right.
religion.
Yes, and you don't even like list your religion on your passport.
No.
Well, in America,
Yeah, yeah.
I think they do that here in Germany actually.
Interesting.
Um, but yeah, like I don't know, like I'm not arguing for profiling Muslims. I'm more saying that like if you're going to have these stupid measures, that one probably would be the most effective in the knee-jerk reaction sort of perspective, right?
Yeah,
Like
at least
like
immediately after, say, 9/11,
yeah, for
right? Nobody
a
knew what
couple of
was.
years maybe,
Yeah, yeah, and nobody knew what was going on. It was like, whoa, this kind of came out of the blue, even though it didn't.
because when
But
you when you profile, you've just showed somebody how to get around it, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
now we need Jews to do this for us.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
there's always going to be a way around it. There's
Hmm.
no perfect way to stop everything bad from happening. So the best thing to do is just keep your eyes open, be ready to defend yourself. Like
Hmm.
like Flight 93, right? Like they fought back.
Yeah,
Am I
yeah.
getting that right? 93?
I
Yeah.
think it was the one that crashed
Yeah.
ultimately. But
Like
yeah, the passengers swarmed the guy or
why
guys.
didn't everybody do that? Like
You know
if
why?
if I'm on a plane and I see it being hijacked, like my assumption is we're all going to die. So why not die trying to take them out?
Well, your
Like,
assumption is that now, but well, like, but before 9/11, most of the hijackings had some kind of religious or political motive, and they just wanted something like, oh, we want these people freed, or I want a bunch of money. So, like, they would hijack planes, and then everybody would walk away from it. Nobody had crashed a plane and killed everybody. That was a novel thing. So the people at the time probably thought, oh, this is just yet another, the Libyan terrorists. They're just trying to get one of their people freed or something, just like it's been going on for decades. So that's probably why they didn't really fight back. And also, yeah, people are afraid at the same time and not willing to stand up.
sure, but I mean, the, hmm, whether or not you think you're going to die or whatever, there's like a serious injustice and like a violence that was going on. Like they had box knives and they were killing people, threatening people, whatever.
And I think they claim to have bombs as well.
Yeah. So if that's the case, like you just band together, like
Mm-hmm.
make eye contact with people. You say, let's go. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just go. And if somebody else is going to go, and then somebody else is going to say, well, there's two people. So now if I go, it's 3 against 1. That's pretty good odds. And then the next guy is like 4 against 1. Oh, that's really great odds.
Yeah.
Like if one person is just brave enough to stick their neck out, other people will follow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
That's the
you
thing. It's
have to
like,
be the one to like take that initiative.
yeah, because I think everybody's waiting for that one person looking
Mm-hmm.
around and seeing like, should I do something? But I don't want to be the one that starts this.
Yeah.
Because what if I'm the only one now? you
Yeah.
know
Maybe I'm
but
giving people too much credit. Like maybe people would be like, wow, this one guy is like trying to take on these terrorists.
no, i
I'm just
think
gonna
i
sit back and watch.
I think you'd see people kind of rally at that point. For the most part, it kind of depends. Obviously, you're dealing with kind of a random sampling of people, so
Yeah,
it could be anything, but odds are people will come in and assist. Like you said, if they feel like the odds are in their favor.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, you get on a plane, you're already taking a risk. This is a giant hunk of metal that defies gravity for a specific amount of time. You
Hmm.
hope, right? And malfunctions happen. You
Oh
could
yeah.
crash and die.
Hmm.
Um, this happens, I don't know, like fairly frequently in the scheme of things, like not that often, but like it's certainly something that we haven't like eliminated every potential for error, right?
Yeah, and I don't think we'll ever do that.
There's
But
always a risk. Yeah, and we'll always have a risk going up in the sky, going up in space, whatever it is we're doing. You get on that plane or that rocket, you're risking your life.
Oh, yeah.
So you should be of that mindset. Like you should be ready. Like I have a certain level of anxiety flying. I don't let it like take over or anything.
Yeah.
But I'm always aware, like, or let's say like making peace with myself, you know, like if this bit of turbulence turns into us crashing, I guess
So be it.
time. You know, like I try to put myself in this state where I'm like, you know, I might as well stay calm because I don't know if it's going to happen. But if it does, I'm certainly not going to like rip open my shirt and be Superman and like pick a plane up.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is, yeah, there's nothing we could do about it. I mean, what you're talking about is basically stoicism.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like there's nothing you could do necessarily on your own to prevent that. And if it does happen, there's really nothing you could do to stop it. So just let go at that point. Like, what are you going to do? If your time comes, your time comes, you know? Yeah. Oh, man. Well, that's probably about all the time we have for today, I think.
Yeah, that was a pretty good, succinct, deep dive.
And we stayed relatively on topic.
Yeah.
Like at least within the zone of that topic. Yeah. Well, I'd like to hear what people have to say about the TSA and other potentially overreaching government organizations.
Planes, trains, but not automobiles.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what do you think about the NSA or the FBI and their how effective they are at doing the things they claim to be able to do? Yeah. Like to hear people's thoughts down there in the comments, you know, keep the conversation going.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because you're here with us in season 5. You're a dedicated deep sink diver.
Or maybe you just found us.
Or maybe you just like all the songs at the end.
Yeah.
I think I hear one now. It's coming in stereo through these headphones. Dolby surround sound.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I almost feel like that would be I got to throw that in there. Oh, man. All right. Well, wherever you are in the world, have a good night, a good day, good afternoon, whatever. Yeah. And see you later.